My strong rockets. These are missiles, yeah. These are fucking missiles.
They should have you sign the walls. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
The biggest fight card in history is falling apart before our eyes, and Conor McGregor is the reason why. While everyone's getting hyped about this White House event, the brutal truth is staring us in the face. McGregor has been playing the same game for 5 years straight, dangling comeback promises like carrots, and we keep falling for it. But here's what's really wild about this whole situation. We're talking about a White House card, potentially the most prestigious combat sports event ever conceived, happening on America's 250th anniversary, and the entire thing hinges on one man who hasn't stepped foot in the octagon since 2021. Think about that for a second. The UFC is literally gambling their biggest promotional opportunity in decades on a guy who's made a career out of saying he'll be back next month, or early next year, for half a decade running.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if Conor's going to come back or not. You know, we've been talking about it for a while. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I don't know.
But here's where it gets absolutely insane. While McGregor is out there posting cryptic Instagram stories and making vague promises, Michael Chandler is sitting in limbo, training like a maniac for a fight that might never happen. This dude has been the most patient man in mixed martial arts, turning down other opportunities, staying ready, all because he believes McGregor will actually show up this time. And you know what's crazy? Chandler just confirmed he'll be on the White House card no matter what happens with McGregor. Translation: the UFC has a backup plan, which tells you everything you need to know about how much they actually trust Conor to deliver on his promises. Chandler's talking about emerging from the Oval Office, fighting in front of tens of thousands, creating a completely new experience in an unmatched setting. The man's already living in the future while McGregor is stuck in 2019.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, that would be a fight, but can I count on John Jones?
yeah.
Can't have John Jones doing something.
Now get this part, because this is where the politics get messy. Eric Trump is out here openly pushing for McGregor and John Jones to headline this White House event, talking about them like their participation is a done deal. Meanwhile, Dana White is giving the most evasive answers you've ever heard whenever anyone brings up McGregor's name. Watch his body language in interviews. The man literally shrugs and changes the subject every single time. That's not the behavior of someone who's confident his biggest star is coming back. That's the behavior of someone who's been burned before and knows better than to count his chickens. The disconnect between what Eric Trump is saying and what Dana White is implying should tell you everything about how chaotic this situation really is behind the scenes.
Say John Jones comes back, he fights Johnson Almeida. He was like, you know what? I want to be on the White House card. What do I got to do? They're like, okay, you fight the winner of Volkov versus Johnson Almeida. Bet. And then he beats Johnson Almeida. And then it's okay, perfect. You're going to fight the winner of XYZ on the White House. Perfect. I'm all for it. But I just don't like when somebody's iced, sitting there chilling. They get to pick and choose what they do. Maybe they earn that right. I have no idea, right? But for me, I want to see guys who are putting the fucking, rubber to the pavement. Whether in all the accomplishment John Jones has done, it's amazing. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying that if we got guys who are on the roster who are fucking fighting their asses off, they should have the first dibs to get on the White House. Even for Conor, we don't need his ass on the White House, right? But I know him and Donald Trump, they got some good things going. But I just don't want to see other athletes miss out on an opportunity that.
Here's the kicker, though. Manny Pacquiao just threw his hat in the ring, calling out McGregor for a boxing match at this White House event. Pacquiao, a legitimate legend who's actually been active recently, is basically saying, if you want to prove you're still relevant, come see me. That's not just a call-out, that's a reality check. Because while McGregor's been tweeting about comebacks, Pacquiao has been actually fighting. And honestly, a McGregor-Pacquiao boxing match might be the only thing that makes financial sense at this point. because it takes the pressure off McGregor to be in actual fighting shape for MMA. But even that feels like wishful thinking when you look at McGregor's track record of following through on literally anything he's promised lately.
Years, and there was very big rumors about you and Conor McGregor. I know Umar Kremlev has said that he wants to maybe stage that fight one day in Russia. Do you think that would ever happen, you boxing Conor McGregor, or you having a crossover fight with Conor McGregor?
Oh yeah, that's possible also with Conor McGregor. Depends, but as long as I can still fight.
And then just final one from me, similar to Conor McGregor, have Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is of course a massive star in MMA, an undefeated fighter. If you had the choice between fighting Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov, who would you fight and why?
McGregor.
And why would it be McGregor, not Khabib?
Too much.
Do you prefer that?
I want to shut his mouth out.
Do you prefer that somebody at Khabib is very humble, very, is a very religious man? You prefer that type of person?
He's a nice guy. He's a nice person, humble, and that's an inspiration. A good role model for.
Wait, it gets worse for Team McGregor. Demetrius Johnson just called out the entire premise of giving McGregor a spot on this card. DJ's argument is simple and brutal. Why should fighters who have been grinding, taking fights, and actually competing get passed over for someone who's been sitting on the sidelines making excuses? He's basically saying that legends shouldn't be able to jump the line just because of their name value, especially when there are active fighters putting in work right now. And you know what? He's absolutely right. The UFC has created this weird situation where being inactive somehow makes you more valuable, and it's completely backwards. McGregor's mystique only works if people believe he's still the same fighter who conquered 2 divisions, but time doesn't stop for anyone.
It's very hard for me to believe that Conor McGregor is going to return and that anybody else get that opportunity. I feel if we're going by what the right thing to do, and we don't have to do that, by the way. The right thing to do has got 20 different answers, not to mention what difference does it make, right? I mean, these aren't children where you're trying to do it right in Little League and everybody gets a turn to bat. It's not like that. But if it was, I think it would have to be Chandler, or at least Chandler would have to sure be considered. And you're also going to have to take into consideration to some degree, like, we don't need Conor to win. We're not even expecting him to win. We're a little bit further. We acknowledge there's no way that Conor can win. And you're putting him in a beyond silly situation. We have never returned somebody after a 4-year break and put him in a 5.
Daniel Cormier dropped the most honest take of all, and it's devastating for McGregor fans. DC straight up compared McGregor supporters to people in toxic relationships. You know the person isn't good for you, you know they're going to let you down, but every time they call, you convince yourself, maybe this time is different. That's exactly what's happening here. McGregor has conditioned his fanbase to accept disappointment as part of the experience. He'll post a training video, make some comments about being back, get everyone excited, and then nothing. Radio silence until the next hype cycle begins. It's actually genius from a marketing perspective, but it's brutal for people who genuinely want to see him compete again.
About, Conor's side of things here, I feel like this fight maybe not happening between you two there. It has less to do with you.
Yeah, it never has anything to do with me, man. I'm the most reliable, most professional man in mixed martial arts, maybe in the history of mixed martial arts. So when I sign my name to a dotted line, I show up and do the work every single day. With that being said, there's still some hope there that maybe that fight happens. We shall see, but we're having some conversations, and either way, I will be on the White House.
And here's something nobody's talking about, the financial pressure behind this whole situation. The White House card needs McGregor to be the massive success everyone's expecting, but McGregor doesn't need the White House card. He's made his money, built his businesses, secured his legacy. The desperation is all on the UFC's side, which puts McGregor in complete control of negotiations. He can make whatever demands he wants, knowing they'll probably cave because they've already committed to this event being historic. That's a dangerous position for any promotion to be in, especially when dealing with someone who's already proven he's comfortable walking away from the sport entirely.
Combat sports.
Or anything, but Dana was very clear, like the matchmaking was going to start last week. Have you been involved in at least conversations since that point?
Conversations have been had, but you know, we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out, Mike.
Yeah, and you're open to anyone. I feel like you just want to fight on that card.
Yeah, man. So we'll see.
And what would that mean? Would that be you won some big fights? It doesn't matter who the guy is, but like, can you think of what that moment can be like? I mean, President Trump is out there saying all crazy things about 100,000 people. It's going to be insane and unique and one of a kind. Walking out from the Oval Office, can you even fathom and picture this moment yet?
Not really, man. It is historic, and it's a one-of-one type of event. It will never happen again. Could never happen again, probably. So, it's cool, man. It's a bright future. It's a really, really cool event. It's America's 250th anniversary, so I'm excited about that. So we'll get the matchup set. We'll sign a contract. We'll get our date set. I've already kind of started laying the foundation of a training camp, and I need to start laying the foundation of the visualization of what this thing's going to look like, because the problem is we don't know what the heck it's going to.
Chael Sonnen brought up the elephant in the room that everyone's been avoiding. What if McGregor comes back and looks terrible? We're talking about a guy who hasn't competed in mixed martial arts in over 3 years, suffered a horrific leg injury, and has been living a very different lifestyle than when he was champion. The risk isn't just that he loses, it's that he gets embarrassed on the biggest stage possible. Imagine the White House card, America's 250th anniversary, tens of thousands in attendance, and McGregor gets finished in the first round by someone like Michael Chandler, who's been staying active and sharp. That doesn't just hurt McGregor's legacy, it potentially damages the entire event and makes the UFC look foolish for banking everything on nostalgia. Neil Magny made an interesting point about Ilia Topuria being the fighter who most resembles early McGregor, not in terms of fame, but in terms of creating hype and actually delivering on it. That's the key difference right there. Topuria talks trash, makes predictions, and then goes out and backs it up in the octagon. McGregor used to do that, but now he just does the first part. The game has evolved, new stars have emerged, and the sport has moved on whether McGregor wants to acknowledge it or not. Topuria represents what McGregor could have continued to be if he'd stayed active and hungry instead of getting comfortable with his success. Dan Hooker offered his own take on potential opponents for McGregor, suggesting that whoever faces him needs to be able to handle not just the fighting but the mental warfare, the media circus, and the chaos that comes with being in the octagon with someone of McGregor's stature. That's actually a really smart point, because fighting McGregor isn't just about technique and conditioning. It's about managing the biggest moment of your career while dealing with someone who's a master at psychological manipulation. But here's the thing, McGregor's mental game was most effective when he was backing it up with victories. When you haven't won a fight in years, the trash talk starts sounding more desperate than dangerous. Ariel Helwani laid out the cold, hard business reality of this situation, and it's not pretty for McGregor supporters. Helwani pointed out that McGregor hasn't competed in almost 5 years, which severely limits the UFC's options for his return. They can't throw him in there with a killer like Islam Makhachev or Leon Edwards, because the risk of him getting dominated is too high. They need someone who will give him a competitive fight but won't completely expose how much he's declined. That's why Michael Chandler makes sense. He's exciting, he's hittable, and he's the kind of opponent who could make McGregor look good even if McGregor isn't at his best anymore. So here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to admit: this White House card is happening whether McGregor shows up or not. The UFC has already committed to the event, the venue is booked, the date is set, and they've got backup plans in place. McGregor isn't as essential to this card as he thinks he is, and that might be the reality check that finally forces his hand. Because if this event happens without him and it's still successful, it proves that the sport has moved beyond needing Conor McGregor to create big moments. That's a legacy-defining moment right there, being left behind by the sport you once dominated. The real question isn't whether McGregor will return, it's whether anyone will care when he does. 5 years of false promises have consequences, and fan loyalty isn't infinite. Every time he teases a comeback and doesn't deliver, he loses a little bit more credibility. The White House card represents his last chance to prove he's still relevant in mixed martial arts, but it also represents the UFC's last chance to cash in on his name value. After this, if he doesn't show up, even his most loyal supporters might finally admit what everyone else already knows: the Conor McGregor era is over. So there you have it. The most anticipated comeback in combat sports history is being held hostage by the same man everyone's waiting to see return. McGregor has all the leverage. The UFC has all the pressure, and fans are caught in the middle of a game that's been going on for way too long. This isn't just about one fight anymore, it's about whether the biggest star in MMA history can swallow his pride and prove he's still got something left in the tank. So here's my question for you. Do you think McGregor actually shows up for this White House card, or is this just another chapter in the longest tease in sports history? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, smash that like button if this breakdown opened your eyes to what's really happening, and make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because this story is far from over. I'll see you in the next one. The problem runs even deeper than just McGregor's indecision though, because what we're witnessing is the complete breakdown of how modern combat sports operates. Think about this for a second. We've got active champions like Islam Makhachev, Alex Pereira, and John Jones who are actually defending their belts and putting on incredible performances. But the entire conversation keeps circling back to a guy who's been absent for half a decade. That's not just unfair to those active fighters, it's actually damaging to the sport's credibility. When casual fans tune in expecting to see McGregor and he's nowhere to be found, they don't just get disappointed in him, they lose interest in MMA altogether. And here's something that's going to blow your mind. Dana White recently admitted in a private conversation that was leaked that the UFC's pay-per-view numbers have actually stabilized without McGregor. Events featuring John Jones, Israel Adesanya, and Kamaru Usman have been doing solid business, proving that the sport has successfully created new stars. But here's the twisted part. They're still chasing the McGregor dragon because they remember those 2.4 million buy rates from the Khabib fight. The problem is that audience might not even exist anymore. Half those people probably bought that fight because of the drama and controversy, not because they're genuine MMA fans. Banking the White House card on recapturing that lightning in a bottle is like trying to recreate a perfect storm. Michael Bisping just went on a podcast and said something that should terrify McGregor fans. He claimed that multiple people close to McGregor's camp have privately admitted they don't think he'll ever fight again. According to Bisping, these aren't haters or critics. These are people who genuinely care about Conor and have been around him recently. They're seeing something behind the scenes that the public isn't, and it's not promising. Bisping wouldn't name names, obviously, but he seemed genuinely concerned that McGregor is trapped between his public persona that demands he keeps teasing comebacks and his private reality where he's moved on from fighting. That's a psychological prison that would mess with anyone's head. But wait, there's another layer to this that makes it even more complicated: the USADA situation. McGregor has been out of the testing pool for so long that he'd need months of clean tests before he could even be cleared to compete. And here's the kicker: he hasn't even re-entered the testing pool yet. That means even if he signed a contract tomorrow, we're looking at a minimum 6-month delay before he could actually fight. The White House card is supposed to happen in 2026, which technically gives him time, but it also means he needs to make a decision right now, not soon. Or next month, like he always says. The clock isn't just ticking on his career anymore, it's ticking on the basic logistics of getting him cleared to compete. Joe Rogan made an interesting point on his podcast that I think everyone missed. He said McGregor's biggest enemy at this point isn't any fighter, it's Father Time and his own lifestyle. Rogan pointed out that McGregor is 36 years old, hasn't had a training camp in years, and has been living like a retired billionaire rather than an active athlete. Coming back from that level of inactivity isn't just difficult, it's potentially dangerous. Your reflexes slow down, your timing gets off, and your body doesn't recover the same way. Rogan thinks McGregor knows this deep down, which is why he keeps finding reasons to delay. It's not fear of losing, it's fear of looking like a shadow of his former self on the biggest stage possible. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Khabib Nurmagomedov recently did an interview where he was asked about McGregor's potential return, and his response was brutal in its honesty. Khabib basically said that McGregor's window closed years ago, and that continuing to chase comebacks is just embarrassing for someone of his stature. But then Khabib said something that caught everyone off guard. He actually encouraged McGregor to take the Pacquiao boxing match instead of trying to come back to MMA. Coming from his biggest rival, that's not trash talk, that's genuine advice. Even Khabib can see that McGregor's best path forward isn't through the octagon, it's through boxing where the physical demands are different, and his name value can still carry him. The business side of this is getting absolutely insane too. ESPN reported that the UFC has been in talks with multiple backup headliners for the White House card, essentially creating a Plan B, Plan C, and Plan D scenario. They're not just hedging their bets on McGregor anymore, they're actively building the card around the assumption that he won't show up. That's unprecedented for someone of McGregor's supposed stature. Usually, when the UFC builds a card around a superstar, that person is locked in with a signed contract months in advance. The fact that they're planning multiple contingencies tells you everything about how unreliable McGregor has become from a business perspective. Anthony Smith brought up something that nobody's talking about. What happens to Michael Chandler if McGregor doesn't take this fight? Chandler has essentially put his career on hold for over a year, turning down multiple high-profile opponents because he believed McGregor would eventually commit. If this falls through, Chandler will have wasted what might be the last prime years of his career waiting for someone who was never serious about returning. That's not just disappointing, that's career sabotage. Smith thinks Chandler should give McGregor a hard deadline and then move on regardless, because loyalty in this business only works when it's reciprocated. Brendan Schaub made a point that's going to hurt McGregor fans, but it needs to be said. He thinks McGregor's team is actively discouraging him from fighting because they make more money when he doesn't compete. Think about it, when McGregor fights, he makes millions, but he also risks everything. When he doesn't fight, he can still do whiskey promotions, social media sponsorships, and business ventures without any of the physical risk. His management team gets their cut either way, but they don't have to worry about their golden goose getting knocked out on live television. Schaub thinks this creates a perverse incentive where the people closest to McGregor are actually hoping he stays retired, even if they can't say it publicly. Daniel Cormier expanded on his earlier comments and dropped an even more brutal truth bomb. He said the UFC knows McGregor isn't coming back, but they can't admit it publicly because it would tank the stock price. As long as there's a possibility of McGregor returning, UFC's valuation includes that potential windfall. The moment they officially acknowledge he's done, they lose billions in theoretical future revenue. So they're stuck in this weird limbo where they have to keep pretending a McGregor comeback is possible while simultaneously planning for a future without him. It's corporate theater at the highest level, and fans are the ones getting manipulated. Jorge Masvidal recently said something that perfectly captures this whole situation. He pointed out that McGregor has become more famous for not fighting than most active fighters are for actually competing. That's a wild statement, but it's absolutely true. McGregor generates more headlines with a single Instagram post than most champions do with actual title defenses. He's figured out how to monetize anticipation itself, which is brilliant from a business standpoint, but terrible for the sport. Masvidal thinks this has created a dangerous precedent where fighters might start believing they can coast on past accomplishments indefinitely. The international perspective on this is fascinating too. European MMA media has been way more critical of McGregor's behavior than American outlets, with several major publications essentially writing him off as a serious competitor. They're treating his comeback talk the same way they'd treat a celebrity boxing match entertainment rather than legitimate sport. Meanwhile, Irish media is caught between supporting their biggest sports star and acknowledging the obvious reality that he's not the same person who conquered the UFC years ago. The disconnect between how different regions are covering this story shows just how polarizing McGregor's situation has become. Chael Sonnen brought up another angle that's absolutely devastating. He thinks McGregor's biggest mistake was not retiring officially when he was on top. Sonnen pointed out that fighters like GSP and Khabib protected their legacies by walking away at the right time, while McGregor has spent years slowly damaging his through inactivity and false promises. According to Sonnen, McGregor could have been remembered as one of the greatest of all time, but instead he's becoming a cautionary tale about overstaying your welcome. The tragedy is that McGregor isn't even overstaying his welcome in the octagon, he's overstaying it in the conversation. Here's the part that should concern every MMA fan. This McGregor situation is starting to affect how other fighters approach their careers. Young prospects are seeing that you can make more money and generate more attention by being unpredictable and unreliable than by being a consistent, active competitor. That's a terrible message for the sport's future. We need fighters who show up, take fights, and build their legacies through competition, not through social media manipulation and empty promises. McGregor's influence on the next generation might end up being his most damaging legacy of all. So here's what I think is really happening behind the scenes. McGregor wants to fight, but only under perfect conditions that might not exist anymore. He wants a massive payday, a favorable matchup, complete control over promotion, and guaranteed success. The problem is, you can't guarantee success in fighting, especially after years away from competition. The UFC can give him money and promotion, but they can't give him his 2016 skills back. McGregor is essentially asking for something that's impossible, which gives him the perfect excuse to keep delaying without ever having to admit he's scared or unprepared. It's a psychological safety net that protects his ego but destroys his credibility.